Henshin a go-go, baby. What's good, guys? Yoku here, and a lot of you have been asking me about Kafka, break build teams, and why I consider DoT as a mechanic one of the most broken things in RPGs. In today's video, I'll go over just that by reintroducing the mechanic in a basic to understand level, the new relics that significantly increase DoT's power, which characters excel at using them, and how it impacts the meta. Per usual, if you want to see more breakdown videos like this, you can always like and subscribe to force YouTube to tell me to make them. For my newer players and some of the ones who just don't play DoT, so you actually never paid attention to this, what is damage over time, or DoT, and how is it used? DoT is just damage done passively at the start or end of the enemy's turn. Think of Pokemon's burn and poison statuses as the perfect example. Now, I say the beginning and the end of the turn because in the future we might get something similar to Pokemon where at the end of the enemy's turn they take DoT damage, but as of right now all the DoT done in Honkai Star Rail happens at the start of their turn, and that's why it's kind of important. And it looks like a little slow game, right? It looks like a lot of the players who do play DoT or look at DoT think that you need the enemy to go first, and we'll talk about the character that really brings that out and forces these things to not really be an issue. But as of right now, yes, your enemy has to take their turn and then they get the DoT applied, which is the damage, and then you get to go, or they get to go, depending on what happens within that instance. Unlike Pokemon, however, that only has 2 types of DoTs, Star Rail has 4. With 7 different weakness types in the game, you would assume that all of them have some form of DoT, but they actually don't. Ice, Quantum, and Imaginary don't actually have DoTs, but they have something different. There is a type of DoT that these weaknesses have, but it doesn't count the same way. So because of that, I'm going to ignore them for now, and then we'll come back to that at a later point in time. As of right now, your first DoT that you want to talk about will be physical, or bleed. Bleed is by far the strongest element type in the game, both in terms of when the initial hit happens and the DoT that happens after that, which is considered bleed. The easiest way to trigger any type of damage over time is going to be inflicting weakness break, but some characters are able to apply the dot without actually breaking the enemy, thus giving you the opportunity to have more than one dot on an enemy. That's really important for like some other stuff that I'll talk about in just a moment. Next is going to be fire, which you probably see me talking about this a lot because Himiko and Guinaifen, but it's burn. Burn is going to be the next thing, which is the strongest initial impact, or second strongest, I should say. Bleed and burn have the same multipliers. I believe it's 2 times the damage that each of them have when they're doing their initial boom, their big break attack, or damage over time. But the actual DoT, fire being one of the weaker ones, I don't know why they decided to do that, but it is what it is, and it kind of sucks. I feel like fire should absolutely resemble Pokemon, where it nerfs half of the enemy's attack or it reduces 25% of their defense. I don't care what it does, but it needs to do something else. Next is going to be shock, which is, you know, shock is okay. The thing about shock is that it lasts the longest, or it tends to last the longest thanks to the certain characters that we have in the game, like Kafka and Serval. Serval being very important because she has the innate ability to extend the effect of shock DoTs, otherwise creating an endless shock that never goes away until the enemy dies. Last, of course, is going to be a wind shear, or wind, which then gives you wind shear. And the reason wind shear is so strong is because it stacks. Most of the stacks go up to 5, but there might be some cases later on in the future where we can create multiple stacks that go beyond 5 or have different types of wind shear, similar to how Kafka has a completely different type of shock that can also be applied on top of her regular shock. So with the basis of DoT out of the way, we can actually go over the prisoner set, which is something that I want to spend a little bit of time on because personally I feel like the prisoner set as well as the follow-up domain are probably the most efficient that you could farm for relics right now. And you're probably asking yourself, why would I even say that? Like, Musketeer is clearly the one that people always recommend. So why is the prisoner set so good in EO's opinion? The main draw here is going to be the defense ignore, which you can see is the 4-piece set. For every dot the target enemy is afflicted with, the wearer will ignore 6% of its defense when dealing damage to it. And of course, this effect is going to be valid or a maximum of 3 dots. Cool thing about this is this applies to every single character that just happens to be wearing the prisoner set. So if your main DoT, Kafka, is wearing the DoT set or the prisoner set, and then you have Sampo wearing the prisoner set, and then Guinaifen also wearing the prisoner set, that's essentially 18% defense reduction for each of them. Unfortunately, it doesn't stack. It's not going to be like 18% plus 18% plus 18%, and that applies to one enemy at that one time. But there is a trick to make that happen, but you still need Kafka. Not only that, but it applies to all attacks, not just damage over time. So this initial attack increase that you're getting, the defense ignore that's happening here, all of these things are basically applying this defense reduction whenever you do it. In Kafka's case, because she has detonations, she's triggering everybody else's DOTs. She has her own DOTs. Everything that she does is a DOT. It makes it so that Kafka always has this defense reduction active so long as you have the 3 DOTs. And again, I'll specifically talk about Kafka later on in the video. Lastly, you have the 2-piece attack, which the attack percent being 12% is very equivalent, if not the exact same thing, to Musketeer, which you're seeing a lot of us recommend this for Dr. Ratio, for instance, where it's a 2-piece attack, any of them, and then a 2-piece imaginary, 2-piece follow-up, things like that. The reason we're doing that is because this is essentially the same thing as a 2-piece Musketeer. It's a makeup set, if you will, or just a universal set overall that anybody in the game can use to get their attack increased. And this works for a number of characters, and with DOT and follow-up characters becoming pretty prevalent as of right now, this set is only going to get better and is going to be used on a lot more characters coming up. So I feel like it's best to farm for this now instead of going for the Musketeer. And then the last thing I want to talk about with Prisoner is going to be the fact that it stacks with any other defense ignoring effect in the game. In particular, it would be Resolution of Shining Pearls, that light cone. Now, if you add teammates like an E1 Ron May, a Resolution light cone, or even a third DOT unit, this is basically showing us that a DOT has an absurdly high skill ceiling that we haven't even touched yet. And I guess a bonus tip would be the fact that because it's DOT, it doesn't eliminate that you can still build your DOT character for crit rate. I know we look at Kafka or Kritka as a weaker form of the actual Kafka, but because you really don't need a lot of stats on all of your DOT units, that allows you to build some hybrid characters, or Kritkas, if you will, for a multitude of your characters, relatively speaking, of course. But to double down on the Prisoner set, I want to talk about the Glammoth set, because I already like this set. It looks like a dragon as it is, so it's kind of my favorite playing our ornament set just from looks alone. But this is a better space ceiling station, at least when you get to the 135 speed, which, to be fair, all of your DPS characters should be trying to hit 135 speed, give or take, whatever they're running. Now, if you hit 160 through any kind of means, that puts this ornament set on the top of the top 1%, number 1, if you will. Don't quote me on that, I did not do the math. But hitting 160 is going to allow you to keep the 12% attack boost, as well as giving you a full 18% damage boost across the board. For most characters, this probably won't be super easy to do. Now, Kafka is super easy because you only need her signature light cone, as well as May or Asta. Speaking of May and Asta, that's actually the other thing that you can use to get to the 160, and this applies to anybody for that matter. Asta giving you a flat 50 speed, and then May giving you a 10% speed boost on whatever you're doing. Easy enough, no other requirements. You just put May on the team, boom, 10% speed boost. Some light cones like Patience is all you need, give you a speed boost in itself. And then some characters have their own innate ability to increase their speed depending on what they're doing. Himiko, Zila, Yangqing. Am I telling you Yangqing is a DOT character? No, absolutely not. But I'm specifically talking about Glammoth here. So now we can get into who takes the most advantage of any of this stuff, the DOT, the Glammoth set. And when it comes to team building for a damage over time team, or a DOT team, a DOT team, whatever you want to call it, it's actually really easy. A base principle to use would be 2 DOTs plus a harmony character, and then whatever sustain you want. You want to get real frisky, you could do 3 DOTs plus your harmony character, and that is possible so long as you can survive, I suppose. But it's a little finicky. Now, with everything in mind and using Kafka as my base here, I had Goba help me out with some of the calcs because your boy does not like math. Y'all know that. That being said, Kafka was obviously the one that I was going to use. She's the easiest for me and the one that I have in my account. When I have 1 dot, I'm only doing 6% extra damage on top of the defense ignore, which is kind of like whatever, right? It's not really a big deal. Doesn't really make it any stronger than if I was using my 4-piece lightning set plus space ceiling station. 2 dots and now we're getting even. Now I'm a little even with what I got going on. 3 dots is really where you want it to be. And 3 dots is not hard to do at all. I'll explain that. In Kafka's case, you have her signature light cone. Kafka is going to be able to apply all 3 DOTs by herself. You don't need anyone else. It's that simple. Her signature light cone is going to give you a second shock, which is called erode. That's number 1. Your normal, which is what any other electric character can do, would be regular shock. Kafka is able to apply this from her technique, from her skill, from her ultimate, you name it, and then she puts it on there. The third shock is going to be a break shock, and yes, just because Kafka does it doesn't mean she's the only one that does it. Other characters in the game can also apply a regular DoT if their kit allows them to do so, and then a break DoT, which are completely different DoTs, break being one that Kafka can trigger, regular being one that Kafka can trigger, which turns Kafka into a monster of a DPS character, potentially. Now, once you start adding things like resolution shines, which is going to give you another 16% at S5, defense reduction, that totals your defense reduction up to 34% with just that one set and resolution light cone. If you started comboing teams, adding team structure into the mix, this becomes nasty work. Now you can start adding different characters. You want Luka, you can put Luka in the game. He's gonna detonate his own break bleeds alongside Kafka, and that's some serious damage. Prisoner requirements activated. You wanna run a hybrid Luka with a DoT set, a bunch of break effect, and crit rate? That's some immense power, my boy. You could do that. Even if you didn't want to run DoT, even though this is a DoT video, but let's just say you wanted to run Dr. Ratio, you could do that too, because Dr. Ratio can take advantage of the debuffs that are being applied. Would I do it? Probably not. I might do it for a meme video, but hey, we're not here for Dr. Ratio. We're here for Kafka. So at the end of it all, where do I see DoT ending up now and in the future? With Ruan Mei having entered the fray at the beginning of this patch, she took any team comp that wasn't hypercarry and put them even further on the board. Now all team comps are viable, and with Mei, we are now able to prepare one of the strongest team comps for the coming meta. She offers an incredible amount of damage, allowing multiple characters to swap to attack percent orbs for even more damage. She has all type resistance penetration, which not only buffs crits, but regular and break dot attacks. She increases break effect, the efficiency of it, she's SP positive, and she adds her own damage to the table thanks to her unique kit. She also applies a natural speed boost without the need for any strict requirements. Once we receive new DoT characters that have more of a focus on fast, threatening levels of damage, the possibility for DPS becomes even stronger. So at this current moment in time, the DoT Cavern has been where I've spent most of my relic farming simply due to its universal nature for a large majority of my characters. That includes follow-up ones like the free Dr. Ratio we just got. Right now, hypercarry is revered as the best in the business, but we're already seeing dual DPS and break teams rival that strength. Now, for those of you that might be like worried about this whole DoT thing or missing out, Kafka's currently on the banner. She's having her rerun right now, and thankfully, we're gonna actually get some more info on the new 2.0 character, Black Swan, before her banner disappears. This is perfect for you players on the fence about picking up the DoT playstyle, since we know Black Swan is a win nihility unit and could possibly be an even stronger Sampo. I don't know. Only time will tell, and thankfully, that's just a few weeks away. Guys and gals, if you enjoyed this video, do leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. I guess you could subscribe down below at the same time. It doesn't really matter. Look, just support your boy. We've been killing it lately. I love it. I love the support. I love the feedback. I just now noticed that Kafka wears one boot. She has on tights, and then she has one thigh boot. How have I never put two and two? Bro, what is wrong with me?